What is going on, folks? This is Asteroots. I'm going to review the 2006 album by E-40, and this project is called My Ghetto Report Card, and it came out in the winter of 2006, real beginning, top of the year. And basically, this was a resurgence of E-40. This is an album that kind of gave E-40 his second win and got him more with like the millennials that were kind of in school in the mid late 2000s and stuff. It gave them a taste of E-40 because basically the E-40 from about 93 to like 2003 was kind of more in like a alternative kind of hyphy Bay Area type, California type sound, and a lot of those songs were just drastically different than a lot of commercial rap and the trends that were going on throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, like Tupac and Lil Jon and Jay-Z and like folks like that, some Dr. Dre, Eminem, some of those type folks. E-40 wasn't really a part too much of those movements. Now, he did collaborate with people. He was collaborating with Lil Jon and Scarface and some of those type folks, but it just was not to the degree where I think he really did not start to kind of become more of like commercial kind of banter until about this album, and just seemed like that was kind of the concept. But he did have some bubblers as singles, but this album gave E-40 two hit singles and really got him on the screen in a lot of ways. Seemed like it got him more MTV play and more kind of BET, VH1 type stuff, definitely. And a big factor of this project was the fact that he collaborated with Lil Jon, who was completely on fire throughout the mid 2000s and such. Definitely did a lot of damage around that time. And Lil Jon produces both of the singles off this project, which really helped. So yeah, this is E-40 in like ringtone rap era and snap rap era, and he kind of does a pretty decent job, pretty solid job of E-40 does a pretty solid job of juggling that style. I definitely like this taste of E-40 and like the southern rap. Now, to say that this album is just a Lil Jon influence and completely southern album is mistaken, because it does have some of those gems in there, but this is a pretty hyphy album, and E-40 stays true to his sound. It's just unfortunate that the problem that I have with this project as far as getting this hyphy sound is just the fact that the single or the songs that attempt to showcase hyphy were just not commercial enough, and it kind of kept it in its alternative fold as opposed to exploiting it and having, I mean, it does kind of do that with Tell Me When to Go. That is a pretty hyphy song, but it just does not have an overabundance of real songs within that capacity to kind of keep doing that. I feel like apart from Muscle Cars, for the most part, hyphy just kind of continues to be kind of the off to the side stuff that it was. It's not to say it's off to the side like it wasn't, did damage, but it's just kind of the concept that I think this would have been a really extravagant type thing to have seen E-40 really bring forth the hyphy kind of movement like Mac Dre and Too Short and Keek the Sneak were trying to do, but it just didn't have enough of like the it didn't have enough of the stamina to really do that. And I think that's just kind of the concept. But it did attempt it. I mean, really, the one song that he did, Tell Me When to Go, was very transformative, and it created a movement in a lot of ways. But the movement didn't really last into like 2007, 2008, and such. But we'll go ahead and talk about some of the singles here. We'll go ahead and talk about some of the singles here. The first single is Tell Me When to Go, and this single is produced by Lil Jon, and this is just a real thumping kind of pounding kind of club song. This has a lot of drum like stuff on there, and I really feel like this is a pretty extravagant one. Perfect song. This is the sort of stuff I really feel like Lil Jon should have produced more songs for this, because I wonder, I like the format of the singles. I like how it went from Tell Me When to Go to You and That Booty, but I really feel like it needed a third single to kind of do it. And if I would have picked the third single, it probably would have been Muscle Cars. I mean, that one was kind of a raw kind of song and a more underground and rugged one. But I really think E-40 should have continued to promote this project and kind of done that. But Tell Me When to Go has a great chorus, just really infectious and sprawling. This is definitely a song that deserved to get the chart potential. And it's just kind of out of nowhere, because I want to say this was E-40's highest charting song prior to You and That Booty, which just really kind of happens to be a thing. And I just kind of feel like this is definitely a thumpy one, just real presentable, just out of nowhere. That's really just the timing of this song was just great. I really feel like this is just kind of E-40 was just quiet for long enough. He came out, he did the damage, and all of a sudden it's like, well, who the fuck is E-40 in that sort of context, at least for like, millennials who were in grade school like 2005, 6, 7, that type era and that sort of stuff. This was kind of, I mean, for the most part, it was just kind of a different era to kind of get, it was just a different era to get E-40 and like the VH1 MTV type stuff. But these two songs were pretty heavy rotation on the radio and stuff, and this is definitely a highlight. So this is a real pounding kind of club song. You and That, which is also You and That Booty, is the second single, and this has T-Pain and Candy Girl on here. And this is a real addictive song. This is one of the ones that I really enjoyed the most when listening to E-40 back in the day. This is like a real crunk song. This one's not quite as hyphy, but this is the sort of song that I feel like E-40 needed to kind of cross over a lot more. And I'm glad that this song was happened, because I definitely think I probably would have been less affluent towards this album had this song not happened. T-Pain does an excellent job on here. This is probably one of his best choruses and best verses that he's done. I mean, yeah, I would have to say it pretty much is. This is one of T-Pain's highlights. This is like a real career highlight for T-Pain. It's a real career highlight for E-40, despite the fact that he has such a vast catalog. It's a career highlight for E-40, despite the fact that he has such a vast catalog. But I just would have to say it's just an overall raunchy kind of cruise in, and just a real raunchy kind of crunchy kind of club song that just has a lot of energy and bite and venom towards it. This is a very stellar kind of song, and just easily, I mean, these 1-2 punches, these are just great to, this is a great 1-2 punch for the album. This is the sort of thing that fledgling rappers and fledgling musicians need to do when they get a hit song, is do what E-40 did here, because this is the sort of stuff that Busta Rhymes would do, and he would always have that surprise hit second single when people thought that he was just going to be a one-hit wonder for his album. E-40 pulled two surprises out of his hat, and they both worked extremely well. And I think really I was kind of hungry for a third single, but it's just too bad that didn't happen. But he at least was kind of like, hey, this is E-40. He did the damage here, and they kicked ass. So there are 17 songs on this album. There's 3 skits out of 20 songs. So out of 20 songs, there's 3 skits, and that leaves 17 songs. So I'm gonna go ahead and recommend the 7.5 songs I recommend. There's not many on this project that I recommend, but I'll go ahead and recommend those 7.5. So those 7.5 songs are Muscle Cars, I'm the Man, Do You Head Like This, Tell Me When to Go, You and That, Gimme Head, and Just Fucking. And the almost song is She Say She Loves Me. Yeah, to basically talk about some of these, I feel like one of the best beats on this album is just the snaking kind of pulsating kind of piano keys, or just, yeah, just not piano keys, but just the snaking kind of keys on I'm the Man. This is a great Lil Jon beat. Mike Jones does a great job on here. It's kind of surprising. That's an odd pairing as Mike Jones and E-40, but this is just an overall excellent song. This is the sort of stuff that I feel like this album needed way more of. A trick that I definitely felt like was exploited kind of well in this project was Lil Jon, but I was not wholesomely like won over by the stuff that Lil Jon did. I feel like beats like You and That, Booty, and I'm the Man were some great ones, and the Hyphy type ones of Tell Me When to Go and Muscle Cars were really good, but there were some disappointing Lil Jon beats on here. Like I feel like White Girl and Ye were kind of vastly disappointing. I mean, both of these were kind of like, I really, really disliked the beat on White Girl. This was just like a minimalist beat that really sounded ripped out of 1991 or something. I really feel like this sort of sound was just kind of unapproachable, and this was one of the most awkward songs on here. Ye was kind of trying to be like a kind of raw and kind of real rougher, kind of roughneck kind of song, but I didn't really like the approach on it. I kind of would have liked Too Short on like a more club oriented type song, but Too Short and E-40 team up a lot, but this was just kind of not as good of a team up. I mean, this is just kind of like a raw song that just showcases that E-40 is not all fun and games, but didn't really appreciate that. Ye was just one that showed that E-40 was not all fun and games, but I didn't really appreciate that one. I did like Just Fucking and Give Me Head. These are two kind of sleazy, kind of low key, kind of house party more type tunes. Like these are not like club oriented tunes for the ladies, but they're just kind of more of like typical roundabout days. Not, I mean, I feel like Just Fucking is kind of a little bit blue collar, but it kind of isn't. It's just kind of more something that you'd listen to in like the evening, late date. It's kind of one of those commutes that like Genuine would do, or some folks like that, like something that Master P would do. Just Fucking's kind of more of like a tune that like Master P or Genuine would do. Just kind of that kind of concept about it. But I look after the concept is just kind of, Like Gimme Head really feels like a house party kind of tune, just one to kind of pull some chick aside and hang out in a bedroom and that type of stuff at like a house party. Definite kind of vibe for that. Just like the kind of circus like the circus kind of beat of like Gimme Head and stuff. Just a nice kind of uh, frivolous, kind of flirtatious kind of one. She Says She Loves Me. The reason why this is an almost song is just because of like I mean, this has a really Texas induced beat. This one's not as much like, well, this one is Dirty South, but this really feels like an 8 ball. This one just feels like an 8 ball, an MJG, and a UGK type beat. It really feels like it should have just been a UGK song, honestly. But the reason why it's an almost song is I just was not quite as sold on the beat. I mean, I kind of liked it, but it just was kind of one that didn't wholesomely win me over. It just has like a real lazy kind of guitar beat. This really feels like a lazy, kind of hazy, late summer day kind of feel towards it. But it's kind of there. I mean, it doesn't jump off the page, but it's one that I probably will eventually like. I liked Muscle Cars quite a bit. I really feel like this should have been the third single. I think E-40 just kind of pulled the promotion on this project relatively early. Like You and That Booty was really like the song of a big song of the summer of 2006, and then after that song died out, he just didn't really promote the rest of the project. He just kind of took his wins and rescinded. I really feel like Muscle Cars probably should have advanced the sound of Hyphy a little bit. It just would have really worked in that sort of sense. But I liked, really, this is like a pretty head pounding one. This just has like a real kind of thumping, just beep and blurp in there that's really kind of like a pulsating kind of club type tune. This is the sort of stuff that Lil Jon needed to make way more of. Definitely like this one. This is just a manic one, and Keek the Sneaks kind of druggy verse just really makes that even better. And then Turf Talk, who's another E-40 homie and that type of stuff, does a pretty good job with that song also. So it's just kind of a nice one. I would have liked a better song with one of his longtime collaborators, Be Legit. I kind of felt like Gouda was just a weak one. Wasn't really into that. Gouda was kind of a more rugged and raw type song, but I kind of felt like I would have liked Be Legit on a more kind of tune. Like I kind of wondered, like someone who's not on this album who I would have liked to have been on here was Ant Banks. He kind of produced some songs on like E-40's 90s albums. I just wonder where the hell he was, because I feel like he was pretty hyped to like the hyphy sound. I would have definitely liked to have seen like a 2000s era, 2006 era Ant Banks tune, because when he did like the song like when Ant Banks did like the 96 single from E-40, Rapper's Ball, that was just such an excellent beat. I definitely would have liked a 2006 type beat of something like Rapper's Ball. I don't know where Ant Banks was on here. I'm glad that he collaborated with Lil Jon, but Ant Banks should have been on here. But Gouda was just a weak one. Be Legit should have been on a better song with him. And it's a lot of these kind of songs with like the more hyphy type folks just don't really hit that hard. Like some of these Federation songs are just not that good. Like I feel like Go Hard or Go Home was a worse retread of Tell Me When to Go. Sick With It too was pretty bad beat on here. There's just a lot of these they might be taping. Block Boy was pretty bad. Like this album just does not do a good job of really showcasing like the hyphy movement type folks. They are on here, but they just for the most part they don't do a good job. I mean, like Too Short and Be Legit songs were disappointing. The Keek the Sneak songs were really good, but there's just not enough of these moments that kind of showcase the sound. I just feel like it was just kind of an unwieldy kind of attempt at brandishing and flourishing like the hyphy kind of movement. Like it did it at least with one song, but that's really about the extent of it. And from that point forward, it just kind of starts to falter. And I just kind of overall look like I feel like Lil Jon, I definitely think what should have happened with this project is E-40 should have had. I mean, I know overly relying on Lil Jon seemed kind of like, I know overly relying on Lil Jon seemed like kind of a bad concept. I just don't know where E-40's longtime collaborators kind of are. Like I think Rick Rock is on here, who I think's collaborated with him in the past, but like folks like Ant Banks or just some folks like that probably could have helped out and given some more commercial type beats on here. There's just a lot of poor production that just does not sound like very like distinct to listen to. I just think they needed a lot more polish. Like I like the concept of getting an E-40 album, but it's kind of like a hodgepodge half back and forth just because some of the attempts really work when I see it does have the polish, like on songs like Muscle Cars, Tell Me When to Go, and You and That Booty, and I'm the Man. It works extremely well. But then there's some really poor beats on here like Yee, Sick With It Too, Gouda, Block Boy. Like what's another one? White Girl especially. I mean, just some of these just really do not come through in terms of like the values of what they're trying to attempt to do and such. And Lil Jon just really needed to pack this album with a few more club hits. Like I feel like there were some on here, but I kind of think out of 17 songs there needs to be more Liddy moments, because out of the songs I recommend to you, I feel like Muscle Cars, I'm the Man, and Tell Me When to Go and You and That Booty are like the club songs on here. But just to kind of say, like, it could have really used a few more moments than just four. I think that definitely out of 17 songs, there's just a lot of moments that just kind of feel awkward. And E-40, to complain about this, E-40 fleshed out these problems later. Like a lot of his like double and triple albums are packed to the gills full of hits, and he really continued to improve as later on passed. But I look after this kind of concept, this is kind of an unwieldy project just because there's just not enough moments that showcase E-40's best moments, like You and That Booty and Tell Me When to Go. And that's definitely what this album needed more of. And it's just kind of the fact that this album possibly didn't have the foresight to realize some of the album's best moments is kind of disappointing. But another song to talk about is Do You Head Like This. This is an example of one where Rick Rock's sound and this kind of more hyphy and Bay Area sound just really hit home. This has like such a sloppy beat. I just really feel like this is just a real kind of get crunk, stank face kind of. This is just a real sloppy kind of get crunk, go rowdy and sloppy kind of song. I just feel like overall this is like a rugged kind of song for like the hyphy type movement. It needed more moments like this. This is just a nice party song, a nice stepping out song. Just didn't have enough of these moments. I just would have to say. But yeah, I just would kind of look after it like in terms of the overall prospect about it. I just think I would definitely kind of say that there's some moments on here that just don't have like enough, like the strengths are kind of undermined by just trying to flesh the strengths are kind of undermined by the attempts to flesh this album out, and it needed more commercial polish. Definitely needed more Lil Jon beats and Rick Rock and Ant Banks and some of those type folks on here that could give it like 2000s and kind of bring it up to speed, because the attempts at trying to bring this project and kind of make it contemporary were just not like sailing, and just overall very compelling in a lot of ways, and just overall like exuberant. So that just kind of happens to be a thing. So I'm going to give this album, me liking 7.5 songs out of 17. I'm going to give this album like a 4.5 out of 10. I feel like that's about as much as I could pretty much do with it. A 4.5 out of 10. I feel like this is a quality project in some senses, great singles, but kind of under promotes the singles. This has some good singles, but just doesn't have enough singles, kind of cuts short its promotion, doesn't have enough stepping out moments, and this kind of is kind of like a shoddy kind of project. This is not quite as durable as it needs to be. The social score as a result of that, like there are some good moments on here, some good songs for the ladies, and good singles, kind of does a decent job of showcasing the hyphy movement. But I would say the social score I'll give like a 6 out of 10, because there are at least all these songs I recommended have some degree of gem potential on here. So I just would have to say it gets a 6. Two great singles, some club moments, some ladies moments, that type of stuff. But so yeah, in terms of the future, like E-40's been kind of quiet lately. I definitely would have to say I'm interested in seeing him come back, getting more albums like this, just with the contemporary feel towards it, and then some quality of like his 2010s albums, because he, like I said, he did get better. But we'll see what happens with some of this stuff. I'll review more of this soon enough.